Okay, 15-second countdown. Okay, we're calling to order 6 o'clock on the dot. Welcome to this meeting. I recognize, of course, as we always do, that we're gathered today on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish with deep gratitude and respect for their care and stewardship. I'll just quickly note that the Sooke Community Complex and Health Center is nearing completion just east of Edward Milne Community School. And we send best wishes for a smooth conclusion to this multi-year process. As I read on the Sooke website, the facility will be a catalyst for a new chapter of healing, cultural resurgence, and capacity development for the Sooke Nation. So may it be so. All right, so approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion that the agenda for the April 7th, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Councillor Pearson moves, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. All approved? Carried. Thank you. Adoption of minutes. Item 4, March 24th, 2025, regular council meeting. All approved? Yes. I need a motion, please. Councillor Beddoes, Councillor St. Pierre seconds. All approved? Yes. Carried. Report of the Chief Administrative Officer. Over to you, Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of things to highlight in the report today. Numerous events that are coming up in the next few weeks here are included in the events section. If you do have an event you would like to add, please reach out to the district and we will be happy to include some promotion for your events. Human resources. On the job front, we have an opening for a wastewater operator. This is a vacancy position that's been vacant for a little bit with the hiring of our head of wastewater. So just looking to fill that vacancy for coverage as the summer vacations are starting to come up. As I mentioned last time, we have the posting is in screening stages. I believe it was just extended for a couple more weeks for our Parks and Environmental Services Coordinator. Looking to find our unicorn to fill that much needed position here. And 2 positions that have been filled are the Deputy Director of Corporate Services, who will be starting on, I believe, the 15th next week here. Looking forward to them starting. And our Chief Building Official. I'm really excited that we have a Chief Building Official starting with us on June 2nd. Excited to have him start and provide some support to the team. As some people may know, Stan Dueck is still providing some support for the month of April here, and then we're working through kind of what May looks like. There's a big building officials conference that happens every year in May that most of the builders in BC, I assume, will be at during that week there. So looking forward to that new chief starting. Let's see what else. A couple pieces of correspondence that came in timely was I did receive a response from Minister Callon on our letter just acknowledging the adoption of the SMU related bylaw zoning changes. In that letter, just wanted to highlight that he is again indicating that further improvements to Highway 14 will continue to address the transportation concerns raised, such as upcoming Idlemore intersection improvement. So we are still waiting for more notice, more information on when the public notice session will happen for that improvement, and have been talking with the school district as well, and looking to see if we need to. I'll let council know if advocacy letters or letters of support or anything would be required to help get that project on track and hopefully started during the year here. The other letter that we received, not surprisingly, was from Minister Big, who has confirmed that there will be no even one-year transition funding provided to any of the municipalities affected by this e-com download from the province and the feds. They did indicate that there is Ernst & Young has been chosen as the successful proponent for the ecom review, and I am aware that one of the CAOs from one of the affected municipalities has been contacted by Ernst & Young to speak on behalf of all the municipalities. So we are feeding him. He has most of the information, and we're just kind of going to correspond through him if we have any other comments to add to his discussion with them, which I believe is happening sometime next month. On that, we do have, we had kicked off last week, and kind of the week before was, our two committees, the Community Economic Development Committee and the Land Use, Development Committee. Very excited to have those committees starting. We had the orientation and then a more specific committee orientation that occurred last week. So really looking forward for those committees to provide some much needed support and guidance when it comes to the items that they're reviewing, the recommendations they'll make to council. Hopefully there'll be some fulsome conversations that happen at these committee meetings and will help just provide clarity on process and just another avenue and a mechanism for people to correspond with council and staff and get some information in a public setting. Big thank you to the corporate services team who take on some heavy lifting when it comes to committees, as well as our director of planning, Chris Marshall, and community act dev, Gail Scott, who will be doing a lot of the staff lead on those committees. AVIC Council is attending the annual conference this weekend, speaking of advocacy, where there's multiple opportunities provided to connect with peers, discuss common issues, work together on solutions, and endorse resolutions that are submitted to the UBCM. So I know that's a good conference for council to attend. It's just for Vancouver Island, so it's very relatable to local island issues. And the letters are attached in case anyone listening or that hasn't seen their agenda would like to read them, that we received from both ministers, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, any questions? Councillor Pearson.
Yes, thank you for the good report. Just any questions on from the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure? Is there any more follow-up? I read the letter. It looks positive. Like, you know, he's dangling that there may be some. Is there any follow-up required from us?
Through your worship to Councillor Pearson, not at this time. I also, since that initial letter about the zoning, a follow-up letter had been sent looking for an update on some of the grants we've been applying for the Throop Connector project, and had a couple specific asks in there. So I'm hoping with the timing that in the next few weeks we'll get a response to that letter, and then absolutely I'll reach out to council if further advocacy support is needed.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just note here, the minister references the Growing Communities Fund. We received 5.9 million in 2023. At AVIC this weekend, there's a resolution, I think, from Courtney saying, let's have more of that, please. So I'm sure that will be probably endorsed already. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Did you want to, pardon me, did you want a motion to receive?
We will receive. So a motion, Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Pearson. All approved, carried. Public question and comment.
Just to note, Councillor McMath has joined us online.
Welcome, Councillor McMath.
Hi, Tom Myrick from Airwood Drive in Sooke. This is regarding 8.1, the 2025 by-election scheduling. I just wanted to let you guys know that I support setting a date now for this election. Now that it's really the only thing we don't know now is how many people will be on the ballot, whether it be one or two. So I would highly recommend you schedule, you support what the recommendation is and schedule this election. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Mr. Myrick. And I think that is the end of that. Thank you for being here tonight, and you, Mr. Waters, as well. Okay, we are moving on to the consent agenda. And let's get that motion on the floor that the following item on the consent agenda be adopted by consent. Item 7.2, correspondence. So moved by Beddoes, seconded by St. Pierre. Any removals? I had a couple that I wanted to. 4D, which is Asphalt Code of Practice from Environment and Climate Change Canada, and 7G, which is Sooke Transit Service. So that'll be for the next regular council meeting. Councillor Pearson.
Yes, and I think it was I'm gonna say it was D, but hang on, no, 5E. MRDT response from Mike and Kathy Hicks.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so those three items, and now we voted, I believe. No, okay, so moved and seconded, all in favor? Yes, so that's carried. And Councillor McMath, of course, you will let us know if you're in disagreement on anything.
You betcha.
Great, there she is. Okay, reports. 8.1, the 2025 by-election. So there'll be a staff report from our corporate officer, I imagine.
Thank you. Through the chair to council, this report provides a recommendation from staff to defer this report further to the regular council meeting on May 12th, 2025 to set the by-election date for July 26, 2025. This recommendation is based on the opportunity to ensure alignment with all 2025 municipal voting opportunities as outlined in the staff report. I will keep it short as this is come back again and there's a fulsome analysis within the report and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, council, let's have speaking order. Councillor Beddoes to start, and Pearson.
Yeah, I've been looking at this with some detail and first of all, I'm not happy about going to a by-election in July 26th in the middle of summer. It generally is a poor turnout. And if we do put Mayor Tate's position and possibly two councillors on that same ballot, again, July 26th is an absolutely dreadful time. So I do not support this recommendation. I'm more inclined to want to getting on with it. We procrastinated on filling Councillor Lajeunesse seat for months now. I mean, the election was back in October, and I noticed a lot of the municipalities this last week have been elected, brought their councillors back in. If I didn't feel that we were having trouble with quorum, which we seem to be doing on almost a regular basis, I would like, I know it might be a little bit more expensive, but if we went for, we made the appointment now for the election officer, the Councillor Lajeunesse's position would be in June before everybody takes off for the summer months. And then if Mayor Tate's, and it's an if, because we don't know what's happening in that election, if Mayor Tate's position comes open, that would then fall in approximately September. So I would think that would be a better time for this community to weigh these things. I'm also concerned about the fatigue of this federal election right now, and to couple a fairly, could be a major election, just one councillor I don't have a problem with. I think we've got voter fatigue coming on. So I don't know about you, but I find this federal election this year is probably one of the more taxing ones that I've ever had to deal with. So I'm not in favor of this. I'm in favor of appointing the officer tonight and get on with this and get a councillor in here so we don't have to worry about quorum in the future. So that's mine.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Beddoes. Councillor Pearson.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I have a question through the chair to staff. What would happen if we appointed you? Can we appoint you in the future? Can we appoint a CEO, Chief Electoral Officer, on a predetermined date?
My assessment of that would be yes. However, there is risks associated with appointing the chief election officer to a predetermined date if there are other factors we're waiting for, potentially the resignation of a member. In order to align that perfectly, my recommendation is to direct staff to bring it back, this report back at such and such date, so that council isn't necessarily locked into a motion that has already been carried, if that makes sense. While it's possible, it's not recommended logistically in case there's other factors that happen between this point and that point. So procedurally, what I would recommend is to defer the staff report to that date where you would want to make the appointment.
Kind of have another question. You know what? I'll listen to what the other councillors have to say because I'm kind of thinking that response. Thank you. Thanks for the response. Through the chair. Thank you.
Councillor St. Pierre, do you have anything? I have a few questions. Yeah. So if we were to appoint a chief election officer tonight, the 80-day clock would begin, and we can look pretty precisely at an election date. So 80 days out from today would be April, May, June, end of June. So that would be 28 days or 26 days ahead of this recommended date. And then if we will know the results of the federal election on April 26th, of course, would your recommendation, if we were to follow this track, be to set that mayoralty election at the first available opportunity in May, which is May 12th, I think?
I believe I understand what your question is. So if a by-election were to proceed starting tonight, just to confirm, that would set the by-election for the vacant seat left by Councillor Lajeunesse on June 21st. If a vacancy were to occur for the mayor, we would not be able to combine or loop them in. And we would not be able to have an additional by-election until the first by-election has conceded. So the appointment of the chief election officer for that opportunity would have to happen concurrently after the June 21st, 2025 date. And as Councillor Beddoes had alluded to, that would set the clock starting from the end of June, which would state 80 days from that, approximately the end of September.
All right. So just refreshing my mind and just confirmation on this. So on June 27th, when we did resolve to move by a 4-2 vote to move us to tonight, have this discussion, I think the rationale for that decision in the staff report, which was supported, I believe, by the 4 councillors who voted in favor of this move, it would save at least 39,000 in the report, but you'd also spoken that number rose in that meeting, I think, to over 50,000 in election expenses, that it also curtails voter fatigue, right? And it will surely heighten interest on voting day, given the historically low turnouts in single seat by-elections. Is that about right, what I've just summed up there?
Yes, that is my understanding of the spirit of council's decision-making. However, council's rationale may not have been articulated if there was other reasons, but that was my understanding of council's rationale. I can confirm that each by-election will cost $40,000 as far as material. The increase of that was the discussion of consulting that would need to be obtained in order to assist myself in running the by-election, which the idea for merging them would be, it would be less impactful of staff as well, and to reduce consulting fees and reduce the impact towards staff. And of course, voter fatigue, an increase of voter turnout, I believe, was a key decision or rationale for council's decision on this.
So a new factor, at least in my mind, is that councillors who are considering running for mayor must, by legislation, resign their seats within 14 days of the appointment of the chief election officer. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that may pose a question about quorum. And in the case of quorum, I would simply seek a ministerial order in which the minister would either provide for quorum to be continued with a reduction of council, or potentially appoint members of the community to serve as a proxy, essentially, to reach the quorum requirements. So there is a mechanism within legislation in order to move forward with business.
Okay, and thank you. So looking at July 26th as a potential date, that is almost exactly 80 days from a May 12th appointment of a chief election officer, as recommended in your report. Are there ways to, we could call, I understand, a special meeting prior to May 12th to set an earlier date that might shave 7 days off, but are there opportunities to do a much more accelerated by-election than those 80 days?
Thank you for the question. So the 80 days is prescribed in legislation. I think it is misleading that it says up till 80 days. What that means is it is approximately 80 days based on some of the pinch points of your notice period. So it might look like 76 days versus 80 days between the appointment and the election, but it is strictly approximately 80 days. There's no way to shorten the time period because it is a very strict regimen within so there's no opportunity. However, speaking to your additional point, it was noted by the Chief Administrative Officer earlier that day that council may have questions related to if there's any way to appoint sooner. So if we are looking at the calendar, keeping in mind that this is moving around the notice periods that are required to start the 80-day process, what could be considered by council is deferring this report instead of May 12th to May 5th, in which case the by-election would be scheduled for July 19th. And that would be the earliest date we could do it, given the time it would take to declare official results from a federal election. So there is an opportunity for council to have a July 19th by-election if council was still open to waiting for the official results of the federal election and be open to merging all voting opportunities in 2025 and eliminating the potential for 2 back-to-back by-elections.
When we say back-to-back, we're looking at June 21st and subsequently, did you say the end of September? I think you did.
Yes, approximately 3rd-ish
Okay.
week of September.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I believe Councillor McMath has a question.
Oh, Councillor McMath.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I know the mayor is on an unpaid leave right now, but is still communicating. So has she given any direction if she is, last time I asked if she'd considered standing down, stepping back. Has she talked to staff anymore about that?
Through me to you, CAO Gray.
Through your worship to Councillor McMath, no further conversations about that have happened with the mayor at this time. So don't have anything further to add.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard nothing from her on this subject.
Okay. Just because if she stepped down now, it seems like it would eradicate a lot of the issues that we're kind of going through. And as Councillor Beddoes mentioned before, there are 24 municipalities that have already had their by-election and they're moving on with pieces. And so the comments about it, costing a few $1,000s more to expedite, and even if we had to hire a consultant, to me it's not relevant when we have these multi-million-dollar projects going. And I did want to follow up on, should she step down now and councillors need to rescind their seats if they choose to run for mayor, what happens exactly? So if we had a by-election coming up and we know there's going to be a seat for mayor coming up and 3 people from this council run for that seat, so now we're back to lacking quorum. Can you just elaborate on that?
Thank you. Through the chair to council. And my apologies if I wasn't clear in my previous answer for this. So if there were to be a point where council lost quorum and there was not 4 members of council to come to meetings to make decisions, I would put a request through. I would email the Minister of Municipal Affairs to request a ministerial order to allow us to continue business with either reduced quorum, or sometimes the minister would appoint members of the community to act in the capacity of an elected official. From time to time, there might be conditions on the reduced quorum. For example, it could be only decisions that do not have a long-lasting impact or just necessary to continue the business function. But the process would be, if we lost quorum, then me as the chief election officer, would seek out a ministerial order.
Okay. So can you explain what is holding you back from us calling for a CEO at the next April regular council meeting?
Council may choose to elect the CEO at any time. However, my recommendation is to wait until the federal election results are called in order to have any resignations come in that may occur, so that we could align any by-election opportunities in 2025 to reduce costs, as well as the implementation of staff, as well as to reduce voter fatigue and increase voter turnout.
So it just seems like we're delaying this because the mayor's not giving their seat. Like, that's the piece that's in limbo.
Yeah, point of order from Councillor St. Pierre.
I'm sorry, but I recently, because most of council was there and looked at the code of conduct, there are a number of areas where this could be considered, I think, an attack on the organization itself. At this point in time, I don't think this line of questioning is appropriate, Councilor McMath.
What do you find inappropriate about it?
One could as easily ask if every councillor that hasn't been able to attend regularly should maybe resign in order to facilitate matters. But that's not something we do.
So now, if you want to talk about like code of conduct, you're referring to myself, who, not in a regular meeting, you constantly compliment me for my dedication as the youngest person here, as the only person that works full-time, that bends over backwards, that sacrifices shifts, that literally at the end of the day pays and like loses money to be here. I'm asking this from a taxpayer perspective, where we could have a single election to fill the mayoral seat and to fill the council seats, which would save the taxpayers a lot of money. Not to mention, we have these massive projects.
Order.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Councillor.
This discussion is not on the agenda. This discussion should not be had. Let's deal with what we're dealing with here and stop this.
Yeah.
There's no good to this.
So, thank you. I'm going to move on our speaker's order here to Councillor Pearson.
Okay. Through the chair to our corporate officer, I believe, maybe only one, I believe we'll know the outcome of the federal election on April 29th, the morning of. I firmly believe that will be there. There's the odd case like that it goes on for weeks or something like that. My question through the chair to you is, and I'm going back to my original thought process on this, is if we appointed you tonight in advance and said, appoint CEO on the morning of April 29th, if the mayor wins or loses it, and I don't want to get into that discussion, we will know if there's 2 vacancies or 1. It will take care of all of the other proposed vacancies that council could be potentially running for a higher office and resignations. We could make a June date, just at the end of June, right? Because I think it would be June, July something, right? July something, a lot better than what we talked about earlier. But in the event that the mayor didn't get elected, we would get our new counselor as soon as possible. We could do it tonight and take a chance and then have two elections. So I'm just kind of trying to come up with a compromise that might work in our favor.
Thank you. I do have a few comments on that
Yep.
proposal. Part of it is related to the notice period and when we need the notice in the paper. And so the Tuesday, the 29th would be tight, not impossible, would be tight, depending if I receive the resignation in writing from the mayor that day. So it's not just the official results, but if the mayor could provide me with in writing, which is possible, which could indicate, appreciate your patience here, the by-election to be held on July 12th.
Vacant council position would be taken care of July 12th. I think it was a abysmal turnout for the one in Esquimalt, which I read this morning. And I agree with Councillor Beddoes.
Sorry, if I may just add on to that, if that was council's will, staff could absolutely set a special meeting date for the 29th of April in order to meet the spirit of what you were conceptualizing.
And, okay, it feels like, and no, that's just that just feels like a comment that we're delaying again, which we've done. We've been really successful since last October. It's like, so I would rather prefer myself personally, I'm making a comment to my councilors, that we make some sort of indication tonight. I feel that. That's kind of where my brain is at right now.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre and then Beddoes.
I like what Councillor Pearson is saying. I think that if we were to set a date for a meeting again on April 29th, moving quicker than that saves us maybe 3 weeks, but potentially costs us a fair amount of money and potentially a lot of voters. And not just a lot of voters once, but a lot of voters twice, which means that we're just losing, better representation. So I like what you're saying. Because it sounds like we could actually meet in the middle and have a bit of the best of both worlds, really. I'd also like to apologize to Councillor McMath.
Okay, thank you, Councillor St. Pierre. Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I'm happy to have this debate and, but it still comes down to a lot of things is the unknowns. First of all, the mayor doesn't have to resign, ever. And if we get into a situation where it's a close contest, it could be some time before she actually puts in her letter of resignation. I'm just tired of us stalling on this and I want to get on with it. And yes, it might cost us a few extra dollars. It might be more impactful to staff, but it's the public that I'm concerned about. If we have, and I heard Councillor Pearson say about sometimes a dismal performance, a July by-election just does not make sense for me in this community. I know in July, it's a mass exodus out of here. I'd much rather get a councillor in and get some stability on this council. And then if we need to get a mayor, then we can do it. It'd be in September when everybody's back from their holidays, the kids are back at school, and the public is much more engaged. I think to have a by-election this close to the end of the federal election is also not a good idea. So I would, I let people make sure they have their opportunity to speak, but I'd make a motion that we appoint the CEO tonight.
I'll second that motion.
I've had my hand up for a long time now.
You need. Councillor McMath, you need to get on screen so that I can see you at some point. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'd emailed you guys a motion and I'll read it here. And the motion is to appoint a chief election officer and a deputy election officer effective April 29th.
Well, fortunately, we've had a motion already, Councillor McMath, which I believe was seconded. So,
Actually, I'd like to ask a question of our corporate officer.
Microphone, please. Oh, wait a sec. I think what I'd like to do is get that motion on screen here for us to look at. Could you repeat the motion, please, Councillor Bettis?
I move that we appoint the CEO April 7th, which is tonight, and start the clock ticking for a by-election for the seat vacated by Councillor Lajeunesse.
Okay, now point of order.
Point of order. Councillor St. Pierre.
I believe that Councillor McMath sent in the motion at 6:32, which had been prior to when this motion was made. There was no opportunity to second it. I'd like to know from our corporate officer what happens in that situation.
So I'll turn to our corporate officer for ruling on this, please.
Unfortunately, the ruling would be that the chair called the mover and seconder of the initial verbal mover. And if I just may have a second to pull up the wording of that resolution, please bear with me. Thank you. This would be my recommended wording as per the staff report for this option of appointing the chief election officer and deputy chief election officer this evening, if that is acceptable by the mover and seconder.
Councillor Beddoes, you okay? with
Yeah,
this?
that's
Yeah.
fine.
And Councillor Pearson?
Okay.
Okay,
Does it say date? Oh, the whole, like, as soon as the meeting's over.
Yeah, I don't know whether I can, anything more to add. Again, let's get on with this. We can't second guess what the mayor is going to do. We can't second guess what the election's going to do. Last time I looked, the mayor was third from 338 Canada. Not that that carries a whole lot of weight. It's the only poll I could find that gives me any sort of idea. So, and then again, if she's elected, it may be weeks before she hands in her resignation, and we just keep putting this off and off and off. We should have had this person in place here tonight. But we've decided not to do it, and I don't blame staff because basically the buck stops with us here. So I stand by my motion. I think we need to get on with it to pump it down to the 29th. That's another 3 weeks down the drain, and then God, we could go on and on and on. Enough's enough. Let's get on with it. Let's get this chair filled and get a functioning council. Thank you.
okay, thank you, Councillor Beddoes. Councillor Pearson is the seconder.
What Councillor Beddoes?
Okay. Councillor St. Pierre and McMath, if you're out there, please.
I won't be supporting the motion. I think that waiting an additional 3 weeks is not about second guessing. It's about knowing that the voter turnout is going to be abysmal. It's going to be following a federal election. People are going to be already experiencing voter fatigue. We know that if we actually have a ballot that includes the mayor and potentially other seats, we'll have a good voter turnout. Even if people have to send their votes in electronically, we have that ability. We're saving 3 weeks and wasting $39,000 to have a poor show up. I just can't support that. I do support Councillor McMath's motion, and I do support what Councillor Pearson was saying before. I don't think that saving that amount of time, wasting that money and losing the voter turnout. And let's be honest, people are already taking off in June 21st and July. It's the summer. As soon as school is out, people are taking off. So that's the way it goes. We're not really gaining very much and we're losing quite a lot.
Okay, Councillor McMath, I see your hand up. There you are. Hello.
Thank you. So I'm literally coming here from work. I like the push for the call. I just would have it on the 29th to align with that election. I was also wondering if we have an amalgamized by-election there and we are below quorum over the summer, if we're not meeting, doesn't that sort of become a moot point because we have those months where we do not meet? So if we're below quorum and there's no business during that time, then we wouldn't have to get a ministerial order, correct?
Thank you for the question. Because the resignation would be 14 days after the appointment of the chief election officer, that would state that if council were to choose the appointment of the chief election officer on April 29th, as might be suggested if this motion were on the floor were to fail and there was a separate motion of the 29th, then the council resignation date would be on May 13th, which if that would impact quorum, would potentially impact 5 council meetings, as we do have council meetings in June and July,
Okay.
but no council meetings in August.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, everyone's spoken except me, and I'll just say I am in favor of a April 29th decision on this. I think we did vote and we did create a delay back in January, late January, for those strong reasons. We were just dealing with a budget with a 16% recommended increase at that point. And we were thinking, okay, here we can save up 40,000 plus. As I said earlier, curtails voter fatigue with 2 by-elections and surely will heighten interest on voting day. I think if we wait until the election results are finalized, we will know exactly what's ahead of us. If that results in an election on, I think we were July, not 19th, 1 week before 19th.
The 12th.
The 12th. Now, I note that North Saanich had a by-election in July of 2023, July 10th. Yeah, so I'll be voting against this motion. So we'll maybe one more comment, second time speaker.
So I understand if delay it to the 29th, but if we don't have a resignation on the 29th from the mayor and we vote to start the clock ticking, I mean, I think to assume that we will have a resignation that quick, I mean, the 28th is the election's over. The mayor may or may not know at that time, and the mayor may have other things to do. The resignation may not come in for 3 or 4 days. So if we vote on that day to start the clock ticking, then we don't have another position to fill. Is that correct? We can't fill the position until there's actually a resignation.
Thank you, through the chair to council. My recommendation was to defer this report to May 12th in order to ensure that all of these pieces were in order. However, it is potentially very possible that the resignation would happen the morning after if there was a clear call on this jurisdiction. What I might say is that is of a more political nature, and that would be a consideration from that individual.
Okay, Councillor Pearson for a second time.
There's a lot of what ifs, a lot of speculation, a lot of guessing, a lot of things that may not happen. And I think the one thing that what I brought forward from our last recommendation to here tonight is that we have a vacancy on council that we can see, touch, feel every meeting. There, we have a vacancy. We may or may not get one. And I hear all the arguments and I don't disagree with a lot of what people are saying. I think, not knowing what we know now, I think we should move on. But I said that in October too. So that was my last ditch attempt.
Okay, so let's call a vote on this. I'll reread it. That Jessica Bagnall be appointed as Chief Election Officer for conducting the 2025 District Suit by-election as per Section 59 of the Local Government Act, and that Nancy Owen be appointed as Deputy Chief Election Officer for conducting the 2025 District Suit by-election. All in favor, please? Councillor Beddoes and Pearson, and opposed? That's St. Pierre, McMath, and Bateman opposed, so that does not carry. We're in a position now to move forward with another motion. We have one that we've received via email from Councillor McMath. And I will request.
I'll second that motion.
You will, okay. And the motion is to appoint a chief election officer and deputy election officer effective April 29th. Tuesday, April 29th.
If Councillor McMath is open, I do have just some wording for clarity. If council would like to see my suggested wording.
Councillor McMath? You okay with that?
Yeah, of course.
Yes, okay.
Thank you. The wording just provides a slight tweaking of the language so that nobody would misconstrue the appointment of the chief election officer of tonight, to make it clear that that would come later. Thank you.
So that's clear. Seconded by Councillor Pearson, and over to our mover to motivate. That's you, Megan McMath.
I just wanted some clarity on the amended motion. So is there any reason why we are not naming Jessica and Nancy for the 29th?
Thank you. Just to clarify, it is so that nobody would misconstrue tonight as the date of the appointment of the chief election officer to start the clock right now. That was the purpose of my slightly amended wording.
Can we not change? I don't love it. Is there another way that we can do that to still have you and Nancy, but for the 29th?
So are you?
Thank you. Just for a clarification, is the request that there not be a special meeting on the 29th, that the appointment be given today effective April 29th?
Like, I understand the clock start, but can we not make, can we not appoint tonight with a start date of the 29th?
My understanding of the legislation is the 80-day clock starts at the appointment, and that we can't appoint for a future date per se.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yep, that's fine then. I'm comfortable.
Understanding on my end.
Okay, we're all clear on that. Councillor McMath, would you like to speak to your motion?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Pearson.
So just so I'm clear, so if we vote on this, Ms. Bagnall is not until we meet again or reconvene on the 29th? Is that the way I understand it through the chair?
Through the chair, we would reconvene on the 29th, and essentially council would have to appoint the chief election officer at that time. And if council chose not to do that, I would recommend rescinding this motion. So this motion is a more definitive motion than just simply deferring a report.
Okay. So through the chair again, so that tonight, if this motion is successful on the morning of the 29th, or, you know, whenever we get together, it's only to confirm your appointment on the 29th.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, further comments? Yeah, I'll close off by just noting that July 12th will be preceded by 2 advance voting days on the previous Wednesdays, I believe, and there is a mail-in ballot option as well. So this should give folks opportunities to vote not multiple times. Not multiple times, just the once. Okay, so let's have calling the vote. All in favor? Councillor McMath was in favor, so that's, and opposed is Councillor Beddoes. The municipal regional destination tax submission progress report, and I believe our Community Economic Development Officer, Gail Scott, will speak to this.
Actually, I was just going to introduce it. That's all right.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
So we have a recommendation for you this evening. This is to do with the municipal regional district tax program. This is a suggested 3% tax that hotels would add to their bills. And this, the funds that are raised from this tax would then come to the district for marketing events, tourism development, beautification, wayfinding, affordable housing, just as some examples of the types of things the money can be used for. It would be in the ballpark of $450,000 that would be collected on an annual basis. And I think that's actually a conservative estimate. It could quite likely be more than that. To date, district staff have been in front of council 3 times to provide overviews of this program. So I didn't feel it was necessary to regurgitate that for you again. But and there's also our economic development officer, Gail Scott, has run 3 separate public meetings on this issue, and invited the general public, but also tourism operators in the area as well as the accommodators in the area. The requirement of the province is that in order to bring this motion forward to the province, that there be support from the accommodators to the tune of 50% plus 1 for the number of hotels or accommodators of 4 rooms or more, and a 50 plus 1% support from of the total numbers of rooms that are in the area. So in terms of the support, we have 2/3 of the hotel. I keep using hotel, but businesses of 4 rooms or more are there was 66.6% support from those operators. And in terms of the number of hotel rooms or the number of accommodation rooms, it was a 95.2% support. So the staff have been successful in gaining support for this, and are recommending that this motion to send along our support for this to the province be done this week. And I just wanted to thank our Economic Development Officer, Gail Scott, who has been a tornado in terms of getting this through. As I understand it, this has been something that we've been working on for 20 years. And so for Ms. Scott to have got this done in a couple of years is great service to the community, and want to thank all her hard work in getting this done and the work she's done in the community to get support for this for the district. And if you have any questions about details, I would defer to our economic development officer for those.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. So we'll have some questions from council, and then perhaps we can go to Ms. Scott. You can answer some of these questions as they emerge, starting with Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. This is through the chair to Ms. Scott. I received a letter today, and it's going to be brought up at the next meeting, where somebody was concerned about 3% being very high. What is the other jurisdictions? What are they charging? Is it 3 or lower?
Currently, the majority of communities throughout British Columbia who collect the MRDT have moved from 2%, now collecting 3%. On Vancouver Island, the majority of the communities that do collect the MRDT are moving to 3%. Sydney just adopted the MRDT and chose to stay at 2%. The difference is, and my recommendation was to go for 3% now, because if we go at 2% and then have to backtrack a few months later to go to 3%, it's going to take a lot more staff time, awareness, engagement, etc. So I'm going to be as frank as I can be. It's 90% of the BC communities are now going to 3%. It's a standard.
Follow up from Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, through the chair to that. So if we vote for this at 3%, is there a possibility, if there's some kickback, that we go to 2.5 with not a lot of rigmarole, or do we have to start the whole thing again?
I believe we would have to go back to rewrite the plans, the 1-year tactical plan, the 5-year business plan, and then do the calculations based on, did you say 2.5?
Yeah, I just threw that out there.
Okay, yes, we'd have to do some recalculation of everything, and it will take time.
Okay, so it doesn't work both ways then, because you said originally, if we went for 2 to bring it to 3, was a lot of paperwork and reapplying and stuff like that. But if we went for 3, it's just as difficult to knock it down to 2.5 or 2.
Yeah, it would be more difficult to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Yes, through the chair to Ms. Scott. We received a letter, and has anybody responded to the concerns that were in that letter that came from one of the voters? It talked about properties not being included in the list. Says voting properties in our agenda package did not include Island Vacation Home, Sunny Shores Resort, and Vancouver Island Lodge. For some reason, they are dropped. Is that just a typo in our agenda? Because
no, it is not a typo in our agenda. I did respond to an email request for clarification, and this letter is just recent as of today, if I'm not mistaken. And my response is being sent to the CAO, and I will just pull that up.
Okay.
Okay. Sunny Shores and Vancouver Island Vacation Homes opted out as their request because they are not going to operate going forward for various reasons. That was a one-on-one telephone conversation between me and Sunny Shores individually, me and Vancouver Island Vacation Homes individually. So when we started out, Destination BC identified 9 properties that had 4+ rooms. So those are your voting members. And when I reached out to those 9 voting members, Sunny Shore says, take me off the list. I'm for sale. I'm not operating. Vancouver Island Vacation Homes said, you're mistaken. We only have 1 room available within the Sooke boundaries. Our other ones were outside of Sooke boundaries, so we really aren't eligible anyways, and we aren't sure we're even going to operate because of the short-term rental confusion and issues. And then when I went further, I had tried several times to get a hold of Markham Properties, just let's see if I got the right name, Markham House Bed and Breakfast. They did not reply to repeated emails that were sent to them. For what reason, I don't know. I've recently heard they were sold, so there would be a name change, but I don't know. So that leaves us with Arbutus Cove Guest House. And I spoke with them personally on the phone. And yes, they have concerns about the 2% and 3%. They have some concerns about other things about the MRDT. So they just politely told me we declined to sign. And that's their right to do so. And then I did receive a signed agreement to vote for it from Vancouver Island Lodge the day after my deadline was set. And he also corrected me on one thing. He said, we don't have 7 rooms, we have 6 rooms. So I am being careful what I say here, but I decided not to include Vancouver Island Lodge because it came in after the fact of the deadline. So I'm just looking at the 4 that did vote to go forward, and that was Prestige Oceanfront Hotels with 121 rooms, Sooke Harbor House with 28 rooms, Sooke Point Cottage Resort with 42 rooms, and Sooke Harbor Resort and Marina with 11 rooms. And when you calculate that out, we got 95% of the rooms and 66.6% of the voting eligible properties.
Thank you for that answer through the chair. It's just when I see a letter, I just want to make sure that the percentages haven't been skewed or changed. Because at one time, if you, and I won't go into the history because it was we were encompassed with Victoria and it was way out there. So anyways, 3% is a lot of extra money that these people have to charge, but thank you. Thank you for your answers.
Okay, I see Councillor McMath and then Councillor St. Pierre to follow.
First, I just wanted to thank Ale so much. It has been a long time coming, so thank you. And I just was wondering if you could walk me through on what you anticipate in terms of the MRDT being used towards affordable housing.
Yes, Councillor Mouth. The MRDT, I just had it pulled up. I want to be clear on that. Eligible expenses. Before I go in and talk about the eligible expenses, when I talked to the 4 voting members that signed off, which are larger accommodators, they were very clear that they would like to see the expenses, eligible expenses, being focused on tourism development, tourism marketing. And they were a little bit hesitant about some of the money being put towards affordable housing. They were okay if the affordable housing was hospitality housing for the industry. But again, when I researched all of the guidelines on the MRDT and the fact that affordable housing is a fairly new addition, they say a limited amount of money should be dedicated to affordable housing. The majority to tourism marketing and promotion, which is website, social media marketing, asset development, broadcast, print materials, etc. Destination development, which can include trail development, wayfinding, signage, and other tourism-focused projects. Destination management, research, ambassador programs, strategic planning, and there's other things that fall under destination management as well, but I haven't got a whole list here. Operations, it includes staffing and office expenses. Affordable housing, it can go towards planning, research, construction, and management. And one thing I did identify under the affordable housing, it can be used, a portion of the MRTT can be used to leverage other funding to support for affordable housing. And the last eligible expense I have listed down here are visitor services, such as what we offer at our Visitor Information Center and such as what our Sooke Region Tourism Association will offer for visitor services. Does that answer what you were asking?
It does. Thank you. And for platforms like Airbnb, VRBO, platforms like that, is there something that you need to do to have the MRDT collected through those, or?
Yes, that's correct. We will take our direction from Destination BC. They are going to work, if this is all approved through the Ministry of Finance, Province of BC, Destination BC will guide us with how the platforms work. They will, because I haven't actually seen that work, I believe they will have all of the details and be able to determine exactly how much money is coming in. And then they take a portion of the MRDT collected for administration, which is a very, very small amount. And the rest is forwarded down to the District of Sooke, who will be the managing organization for the MRDT for this period of time.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
I want to thank staff for all the work on this. I know that council has basically set community economic development as one of our strategic priorities, and this is, I feel, a very strong move forward. We know that we need some money available. We know that we can't just keep on raising residential taxes in order to actually pay for tourism. So this is definitely a pay-per-use model that helps, I think, the operators and helps our local economy. And there'll be a lot of spinoffs for the entire community in terms of ECDEV. So really pleased to see this happen. At this point in time, I would like to move the motion that the District of Sooke support the application of the Province of BC for the Municipal Regional District Tax Program, MRDT, and the council directs staff to submit the completed MRDT package to the Province of BC prior to April 11th, 2025 as presented.
Okay, so moved. Seconder, Councillor.
Second it.
I saw Councillor Beddoes first. I'm sorry, Megan. Councillor McMath. Okay, so comments at this point. Everyone's spoken on it except yours truly. So I would like to say a few things. If no one else. Oh, you do indeed.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so. Yeah, I just asked the question because I was a little confused about how it worked, and you answered the question. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is a lot of hard work gone into this, and I personally appreciate Scott's efforts. You've been battling an uphill battle 3 or 4 times, changing it, but it looks to me like we've got buy-in from the majority of people with the majority of rooms in Sooke, and I think it is a step forward. So kudos to you and other staff. I know it's not just you alone, so thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say it wasn't just me. It involved a lot of other people, but I really appreciate all the support we got for it.
Okay, so I missed my opportunity to ask questions, so I'll just ramble on for a few minutes here. It's wonderful to read those. Well, congratulations first to get us to this point. The one-year tactical plan is in fact wildly exciting document. It engages with it's going to spend, I think, as I understand it, the revenue will start once the approval comes through in about 6 months.
Approximately 6 months.
So these things will begin in 2026. There is a action plan with 15 different categories of marketing activity involving the Sooke Region Museum, the Sooke News Mirrors identified here, Sooke Fine Arts Show, mobile visitor kiosks are part of this package here. The development of visitor personas, the kind of people we can anticipate attracting here, both primary and secondary groups. In the secondary groups are direct into Vancouver and saying, come on over, staycate here spend 72 hours in Sooke and leave your money behind, please. I was particularly excited to see the item here on Festivals and Events Fund, the creation of a $40,000 fund that, like the Community Grant Program, would allow individuals to come to us and pitch their best community events and fill that summer calendar. That's exciting to me. So yeah, it's fascinating and a long time coming. And with 95% of our accommodation units represented in the thumbs up on this, I'm comfortable voting in favor. So here we are. Let's vote. All those in favor. And that's Councillor McMath, I assume, yes, as well. So
That's correct.
I ask, excuse me, I just want to add one more thing, and thank you very much for passing the vote on it. Just to recognize that today, April 7th, is the very first day of BC Tourism Week 2025. And to pass the motion that it be submitted to the province prior to April 11th, which is the last day of Tourism Week BC, is very apropos. It's going to make for some very good PR, saying that after 20 years, we got the MRDT through during Tourism Week. But I would just like to share with you a couple of stats. The tourism industry in BC generated $22.1 billion in annual revenue in 2023. This includes $5.2 billion in export revenues and $16.3 billion in restaurant receipts. And BC hotels generated an estimated $4.6 billion in room revenues in BC hotels in 2023. That'll give you an understanding of just how important tourism is as an economic driver. And it is one of our strongest economic drivers for this region. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
thank you, Ms. Scott. Okay, we're moving into the bylaw section, 9.1, the 2025-2029 5-year financial plan bylaw. So over to our Director of Finance.
Through the chair to council, we have host the open budget open house on April 2nd, and the feedback and comments are included in the reports. Now the financial plan bylaw 922-2025 is in front of council for adoption.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, happy to answer any
We've done a lot of
questions.
talking on this budget.
We have done a lot
Yes.
before the budget, and and just I feel we have answered a lot of questions,
And shortly it begins again.
yeah.
So Councillor St. Pierre, you have a question.
I'd like to move that council adopt the 2025-2029 5-year financial plan bylaw number 922-2025.
Okay, seconder on that, Councillor Beddoes. Any further comments from our mover? Yes, please.
Actually, I think the first comment I have really is I really appreciate our Director of Communications responses to the public. I think they were extremely well formulated, addressing some of the concerns. I think one of the major concerns was really around what seemed like an egregious increase of, 15, 16%. In comparison to other local governments that were only raising by, 7%, specifically Saanich. And it was pointed out that their 7% actually represented about, I think, $267 out of your pocket, whereas our 15.89 represented $233 out of your pocket. So our actual in dollars amount was actually significantly less than the 7%. And I think that it's really good for everyone to understand that when you're looking at the larger local governments that have much better, larger tax bases and different numbers involved, the percentages lie. We actually, I think staff and the district does a very good job in terms of making sure that we keep the costs low, that we pursue every grant, that we make sure that money's coming from where it should, and that we're trying to keep the actual tax burden as low as possible, not just a percentage. I think this is also for the future where we hope to not have to increase taxes by this amount again, by making sure that we make appropriate increases now. So I think that the work is really excellent, and I appreciate the work that staff has done communicating out to the public. I appreciate the work that was done during the open house when I think we had a turnout of 32 people, higher than any other open house. So well done on that as well. It sounds like at this point, generally people are not going to be thrilled, but they do understand and they do want the services. So I'm really happy to move this motion and to support it.
Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I can't say I'm thrilled with the 15, whatever it is, it's way too much, but when you dive deep into it and how we got to this number and some of the unforeseen things that popped up for us, like 911 services. When I was here for the entire open house from 2 o'clock till 7 o'clock at night, I talked to a number of people. I only talked to one that was sort of adamantly against the 15%. And about 4 or 5 of us engaged with this gentleman and were able to explain it. And he did understand in the end. And his only comment in the end was the 2% asset management can go and the rest can stay. We worked very hard in the last number of years, and I know it's still scary, but if our community is growing, we need police officers more so now than ever before. Our crime rate's gone up about 5%. So, I mean, I can't see cutting anything there. So there wasn't a whole lot of things to cut, and I appreciate all that the staff has done. Like I say, I know there's people out there that are unhappy about it, but I've only been approached by 2 people in all that time. So not to say that it's great. Hopefully next year we can get it down below 10. I hope so. But there's a lot of work gone into this. So I'll of course support that motion.
Okay, further comment? Councillor Pierce.
Yes, pretty gut-wrenching to be looking down the barrel or looking down at a 15-point-something% increase. All the years that we've all been together on council, it's probably monumental. Our community is growing up. We have protective services that are an absolute essential piece of what we do. There's going to be more pressures on us coming in future years as we grow. But one of the things I think of note is in the background, we have a community economic development committee trying to look at ways to generate our economy in terms, because I'm asking questions around what that blend should be and of what commercial versus residential, and we're heavily weighted in residential as we grow, and it's there's an opportunity for commercial development in our downtown, and hopefully that starts giving us some more revenue back that we can afford the services that we have now, because province downloading yesterday's news, British Columbia is broke. They don't have any money. They're out. Imagine our province. So imagine their problems. We still live in a pretty nice place, and we still have a fairly significant good service backdrop. So anyways, it's tough to vote for this, but it has to be done.
Yeah. So I'll just close out by saying, I too was at the open house. I agree with everything people are saying. I did have a couple of conversations with two people who were particularly wanted to make the point that this is a hardship for them and others in Sooke, and we hear that. We hear that very clearly. And I did my best to explain the rationale for this increase. As we've discussed here, this is about bolstering 24/7 police and fire coverage, building the asset management fund, and keeping pace with fairly negotiated union contracts effectively. And that's how we came up with this number. I think, as Councillor Pearson was saying, and others have said, we must diversify the tax base. The latest numbers in tonight's report indicate 82.7% residential is where we're drawing taxes from, just 15.5% business and 1.33% light industry. So this Community Economic Development Committee very much aligned with the strategic plan of council. We need to get the employment land strategy underway. We have, I think it's 33 hectares of underutilized or unused entirely commercial and industrial land. And we need to definitely bring in the business, right? And also get some of the town center commercial projects up and running to just lighten the load, because there will be future policing hires, firefighting hires. The asset management fund needs to be 2% per year for 30 years, I think is Mr. Carter's vision for that. So yeah, so as painful as it is, there it is. We are moving forward. A final comment from Councillor St. Pierre.
Thank you, Chairman. I just also wanted to mention, because Councillor Pearson reminded me of, we are trying the best we can to actually increase our revenues in various ways. We have a motion going forward to UBCM that was brought forward actually by one of our staff. We said, listen, we've been losing revenues on utilities that we used to get from telephone hookups and cable hookups. We need to move this to the cell phones, and we need the province to look at this legislation that hasn't been looked at since before we had cell phones. So we're bringing that forward. Sooke is bringing this forward to UBCM at AVIC, hopefully AVIC, coming up this coming weekend. We're trying to increase commercial taxes, as Councillor Pearson was saying. And I think that one of the things that is often not well understood is how much money our staff saves taxpayers with the work they do on grants for infrastructure that we must have. We must have wastewater treatment plants. We must have roads. We must have things simply to continue. And those things have to be maintained. And having solid staff that we pay for actually allows us to save millions that doesn't actually fall on our taxpayers. I've been astonished at what has been possible with a full complement of excellent staff since we've gotten to that point. And I think that often that's not very well understood. The other thing that's not well understood is that of the Canadian tax dollar, about 7% is collected by local government, and we only get to keep about half of that because the rest goes to libraries and schools and so on and so forth, and the regional government, CRD. With 3.5% of your tax dollar, you get roads, wastewater, police, libraries, parks, and God only knows what else. Where else can you get kind of value? I mean, honestly, it's pretty amazing. When you think about the other 97, what's happening there, let's not go too far. We're having a federal election, we can decide. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready for the vote. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Unanimously. Cover that. We are now up to bylaw. No, we've just completed that. New business, no new business tonight, as I understand it. Correspondence requiring action. So 11.1, this is a letter from Chief Underwood of the South Nation, urging the province to act on knotweed infestation in Sooke River. Now, I pulled this for correspondence, so here we go. This is the motion I put through earlier, and it's up on the screen here. So I'll put this on the floor and then I'll motivate for it. So that council directs staff to write the Minister of Forests and the Minister of Water, Land and Resource Management in support of the South Nation's request for urgent action on knotweed infestation, and to inquire as to the status of the district's April 22nd, 2024 request for a pesticide use permit to eradicate knotweed in the Sooke and Charters rivers. Seconded by Councillor Pearson. So to motivate on this, we were first told about knotweed issues. Knotweed, in case you don't know, is one of the most pernicious, remarkably resilient and dangerous. It goes under concrete. It's highly difficult to eradicate. And we were told back in 2019 that it had been identified at Charters Creek in particular, right at the mouth of the river leading into the hatchery, and also at other spots along the Sooke River. The district recommended and has proceeded with a request for a pesticide use permit, pesticides being the only thing that will deal with this knotweed. That went through, as it states in the motion, in April. And the province's reply to date has been with the quote unquote, with the realignment of functions between the Ministries of Forests and Water, Land and Resource Stewardship, the jurisdictional responsibility for aquatic and riparian areas and authority to address invasive plant species is under review. So that's where things stand. The response from the ministry also went on to say they are working with senior managers to facilitate this as quickly as possible. And work is also going on with the CRD, Jenny Eastman, CRD's invasive species coordinator. There's a new biodiversity service at the CRD that is focused on invasive species. So the feeling here is that we can support the Sooke in requesting urgent action while also finding out what's happened to our request for that PUP or permit, pesticide use permit. So having said that, Councillor Pearson, you heard this at the JDF Water. I think.
Tonight, I sent you all a fact sheet from the CRD. I raised it at both the regional water supply as well as the Juan de Fuca water supply. I talked to Dr. Harris, and he's aware of it. He was going to bring it to his staff. And then today I got the email. I raised it with CAO Alicia Fraser, and I kind of tried to sound the alarm bells that it's not very far from Sooke Lake. This is a very, very dangerous invasive species. So hopefully, Miss Eastman has sent me a letter, and I've copied all of you. I just put it into your inboxes tonight. That along with the CRD and the water commissions and us and South Nation, we can get the province to move a little bit on it. So if you read that fact sheet on it, which it was pretty interesting to read, quite alarming how bad this is. But it's only a little piece of stick this big can propagate wildly, like you read about it. And so we have to, unfortunately, use herbicides or something to eradicate it. Pretty dangerous stuff in the water supply. But
Councillor Pearson, St. Pierre.
Based on what Councillor Pearson was saying, I'm curious as to why the province isn't more proactive. Instead of giving a permit use, why are we not simply reporting the knotweed and they already have the permit and they should just show up and eradicate it? It's highly dangerous. It's threatening riparian areas that they're responsible for. And yet there are delays here until we can do it. A properly trained crew that the province was just deploying whenever it's reported seems to make sense. And I'm wondering if perhaps the letter could mention something like that. I don't know. Because it certainly seems to make sense to me. It would reduce delays. Just a thought.
Through me to our corporate officer, I assume Emma Taylor, our director of parks, manager of parks, will be involved in writing this letter.
Thank you. Yes, we do engage in the department experts when writing these things, and your comments are noted.
Okay. So one more comment from Councillor Pearson.
Yes, and also it is my hope that Ms. Taylor could contact Ms. Eastman at the CRD. Maybe they could have a discussion if they haven't already. Because I've got an invitation here to contact her by phone, and I don't know, maybe there's more behind the scenes that I don't know. So, thank you.
Okay, so we'll vote on that. All in favor? Okay, none opposed. Now in looking at my email, I see Councillor McMath is requesting a meeting break. So let's take a 5-minute recess and return at 7:35. Okay, 7:38, time to return. Yeah.
You get to say that.
Okay, we're going to continue. Mr. Waters and hello, all in attendance, raise your hand. Okay, so we are going to move on with item 11.2, which is the another piece of correspondence I pulled, the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee Annual Report. And I'm just going to move that that be received for information. Seconded, okay. I moved and you're seconding St. Pierre. And I'll just simply note, I'm part of this committee. I wanted to be sure that this document got onto the public record. As the year unfolds, the Victoria Family Court is working on revitalizing its membership approach so that we can attract professionals in the field of youth and family law or individuals working with related service agencies. So that will be coming forward at a later date to council to help identify alternates to the council appointees. So on that note, all in favor? So that's carried. The next item is 11.3, a letter from Kelly Norton on animal control. And I'm also going to move to receive this for information. And seconded by St. Pierre, Councillor St. Pierre. So I'll just note here that this was a very substantial letter from Ms. Norton, writing in relation to animal regulation and impounding bylaw number 392. And item 37 of it notes that no owner of a dog shall permit the dog to be running at large in the district unless the dog is kept on a leash, tether, or other suitable device, or is under the immediate care and control of a competent person. So that was that's the legislation as it currently stands. Ms. Norton noted that dog attacks are almost daily now, and some dogs are being killed by out of control unleashed dogs with irresponsible owners. These are direct quotes, dog attacked and or killed by another off-leash dog with the owner on site and can't control their dog. Victims are having to pay the vet bills in the thousands of dollars. She in no way places blame on the dogs for their behaviors. This is 100% on the shoulders of the pet owner who doesn't comply. So her feeling is Sooke has evolved to the point of as a community where we need on-leash regulation. And in replying to her, I did note that the Parks and Trails Master Plan of 2020 identified that there should be an on-leash bylaw to prevent dog issues in Sooke. That the current legislation's reference to under effective control is a confusing and an unenforceable requirement, that there should be designated off-leash areas, and that whiff and spit should be on leash to protect walkers and nesting birds. So the Parks and Trails Master Plan will undergo a midterm review later this year, and that's why I've recommended this be for information only at this point. So there will be public input to that midpoint review. And I think our CAO has some other information to share.
Sorry, Your Worship, just wanted to add, I didn't know if you were going to mention the CRD piece as well, because we contract out this service to the CRD as part of the CRD requisition. And when this correspondence came in, we reached out to them just to confirm their position on this. And we were advised the CRD is currently this year going around to each municipality talking about this initiative amongst other things. So just more information to come later this year. We don't know the timing of when they're planning to come to Sooke, but we do know that they're planning to come to Sooke at some point this year and talk about this as one of their services that they provide and provide some recommendations to have similar enforcement across the region here. So more to come on this.
And that would be in the form of a delegation to council?
Correct.
Yes, okay. On the grounds that we are listening and we are open to public input at all times. So let's vote on this. All in favor? Okay, and that is carried. 11.4 is a letter titled Reforming the Local Government Act, a Roadmap. And this has come to us via Ben Gesselbrack, who is the chair of or president of the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities. This is being circulating to all local governments, including the CRD, and at last Wednesday's Governance and First Nations Committee meeting, the same letter was received, and it's being forwarded to the Electoral Areas Committee for input, and perhaps a recommendation that CRD staff provide input. Now, this local, the reform of the Local Government Act, as you'll have read in the document, is largely focused on regional districts, not municipalities. So really, this is a request for participation. So the deadline on the survey is May 31st. And as was discussed at the CRD, all members are invited to submit their own individual input in a questionnaire that's part of this. And at the CRD, staff were invited to participate as well, and I offer that up as an option. Councillor CAO Gray.
Through your worship, I just wanted to add from a staff perspective, I did attend a webinar a couple weeks ago that was hosted by, I believe, Ben and Mr. Lindstone on this topic. So that we have gotten the information and from a staff perspective can respond if it's appropriate to, to your point, it's mostly a regional district perspective that they're looking for. So I think in this case, from a staff's perspective, we have our contacts and will remain engaged in this if there's anything relevant from the staff to weigh in. And it's just wanted to highlight that I did attend that webinar. And if there's something council would like to do, I'm happy myself or Ms. Bagnall can maybe walk you through it if you feel inclined to participate from a council perspective.
St. Pierre.
I did fill out the survey and look through the document and so on and so forth. And again, this is very much targeting the regional districts. I think it's more for information. I think I found it interesting to find out what the differences were and how powerful we were compared to the region in terms of, jurisdictions that we do have, decisions we can make. So I think it's very interesting on that basis. And I think that on that basis, if anybody wants to read it to find out why they should support regional districts in terms of some of these changes, that's appropriate because they do need these changes pretty badly. There are areas where they simply can't keep people safe because they don't have the jurisdiction. So I recommend people read it, but I don't know if it's actually imminent that we participate any further. I think it's really just to help us in our understanding.
So we'll have, do we need a motion?
Thank you. Speaking to what you were going to ask, a receipt for information potentially would be in order. I did circulate this to leadership staff as well as per the request. I will note just for council's information that I did work at a regional district as a deputy corporate officer. And I will say that it does have impacts on municipalities, in particular with creating services with electoral area jurisdictions. There is some really interesting language around how municipalities get into services and how services are amended, which does have implications on the municipality as a whole. So I just would hesitate to make the statement that it's only for the advancement of regional district operations, whereas there's a few sections that I'd be happy to walk you through offline on the implications to municipalities.
That would be welcome. So we have who's going to move this for information? Councillor St. Pierre and Beddoes is seconded. All in favor? Carried. Okay, 11.5. This is another letter I've requested into the package tonight. This is a letter from Robert Crease, who is on the executive of the Juan de Fuca Community Trails Society, and they have a campaign to acquire the Matterhorn not the Swiss Matterhorn, but the French Beach Matterhorn as a park. And this is outside our jurisdiction, of course, but it is indeed a near and dear part of the Sooke region for all of us here in Sooke. The recommendation here is another letter that, and I'll put this on the floor, that council directs staff to write the CRD and the province of BC in support of the Juan de Fuca Trails Society's campaign to establish the Matterhorn and surrounding area either as a regional park or as an extension of French Beach Provincial Park. So seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. So I'll just send some kudos to Juan de Fuca Trails Society. You know, they're responsible for William Simmons Memorial Park, for trails leading into Broom Hill from Otter Point, Jordan River Regional Park, Sandcut. They have a right of way from the Priest's Cabin up to the Matterhorn, which is a 10-kilometer, pretty strenuous hike. They've also, here right in Sooke, they helped Wittich Environmental build the Sea Park Trail stairs and the Brownsea Road to Horn Road Trail. And they're also central in our urban trail system. So I think it's worth sending this simple and direct letter to support this campaign. They would need to be negotiating with Mosaic Forest, and yeah, so that's it. St. Pierre, okay. Councillor Pearson.
I think I heard at a meeting recently that our MLA is having ongoing meetings with Mosaic. Would be nice to copy our MLA directly.
Would you like to add that as a, we'll just,
if you could CC him on.
Yeah. Okay, thumbs up. Okay, all in favor? That's unanimous. You brought forward item 11.6.
Well, this is a letter through your chair. This is a letter from Lynn Hayes McDonald from Greater Victoria Crime Stoppers with a request to discuss how their program might benefit Sooke, given recent crime statistics and the rising policing costs. I thought it'd be appropriate for us to hear them out and probably to have Sergeant Wilcox on hand to provide comment and hear them out as well. So I'm not sure what the appropriate motion or next steps would be. Possibly just accept getting back in touch and setting up a time.
Yeah.
Or perhaps a delegation.
Waiting for a delegation.
Yeah, either for delegation
Yeah.
and have Sergeant Wilcox available if possible.
Okay. So shall I contact Ms. McDonald directly and send her a delegation request form, or would it be appropriate for staff?
Either would get the job done, but we certainly could receive a motion from council directing us to invite this person as a delegation.
Okay,
So moved by all round. So moved by, I'll give it to Beddoes and then, no, it's okay. Doesn't.
Fine. Scared.
St. Pierre, Beddoes. This is governance 101. Oh my. Okay. So all in favor?
If I may just clarify, pardon me, I was typing away. Did we vote?
We did, and it was carried.
Thank you.
Okay, no items removed from consent agenda tonight. Council verbal reports. Nothing from Councillor St. Pierre. Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I have two quick reports. I'll get that one up there. Okay, the first one is, along with a few other people attended the Sooke Building Association, and, our guest speaker there was our MLA. Good to see him. And, he, had an interesting speech and then asked for anything he can do, and he had about 50 requests. And one was from me. I just wanted to make it clear that I asked him, now that we have the engineering done for the third lane from the bridge to Phillips, and from Phillips up to Charters and beyond, I guess, when we could see action on that. And he was very kind to say he didn't know, but he'd get back to me within 30 days. So I hold my breath waiting for that, but maybe he didn't say 30. He said he'd get back to me right away. So I'm hoping he does put that forward, because we have our staff has engineered that and it's ready to go. And that would be very helpful to alleviate some of the traffic concerns over the next 2 years, because even if the referendum for Throop Road goes through, it's years before it's effective. So, and the other thing is, I got a message from Sea Park. I'm pleased to report that we have provincial approval to proceed with the AAP for borrowing funds required to move ahead with the skate park replacement and energy recovery project. A staff report will go to the CRD board on Wednesday, April 9th, for approval of the AAP process, including the elector response form and communications channel. I guess she gave me a link as well. Also, they're going to send it to put forward to us at ALC application to skateboard Bartland, go to district council later this month to move us forward on that front. So we will be getting that and later this month by the sun. So we're on our way to getting that space, and the energy recovery system. That's a real smart process in recovering some of the heat and using it for purposes inside the building. That's it for me. Thank you.
Councillor Pearson?
Yep. Few things. Councillor, Deputy Mayor and myself toured with Dan Levitt, Seniors Advocate. Was a very interesting sort of whirlwind tour. We were at the food bank, we were at Air Manor, and we were at the library. I toured a little bit of Lot A, gave him a sense of how Sooke is doing with regards to seniors. He made some very positive comments about how he felt he got the sense we were a get it done community. He was actually, he was quite open with that. That was a really good tour, and I'll let you speak to it in your report. CRD Wanda Fuco Water Commission meeting on April 1st. I think I told everybody about in the 20 years of filling up in February, 2 times in the last, the 3 times that it's happened in 20 years, 2 of those times have been in the last 3 years, filling up in February. It's generally from the end of December to the end of January. And this year not last year, the year before, it filled up late in February. So there was a water main broke in Sooke in Sun River, as many of you know, on March 21st. 16 homes were affected. It's a 20-year-old 6-inch pipe, premature failure. No logical explanation for that. And the big news, of course, which came from the regional water supply, is that April 24 to April 27, the DCC freeze is on in order for to access the grants, the infrastructure Build Canada infrastructure grants. So that's one of the conditions that people will be eligible for the federal government grants is that they freeze their current DCCs for 3 years. I attended both the economic development and land use committees, and I'm extremely excited about both of them because there's really some good presentation by staff. It gave a great overview on the land use, so I really appreciated that. And then I attended the Sooke Builders Association meeting where our MLA also attended, and it was quite a positive meeting in respect. I think we're making headway with them. They're pulling us. They want to be involved in our decisions around the OCP because they're the users of the OCP. So very clearly that was their request. But again, a long ways from where we started those meetings a little over a year and a half ago. So yeah, they get spicy sometimes. Spicy at times, but our CAO, I think handled herself, the Builder Association. But but that's the way it should be. I think that open dialogue, there's trust there, and I can see that. Our CAO did a great job, as well as the counselors that spoke. So, okay, that's it for me.
Okay, I'll Councillor McMath, anything?
I'm good, but thank you.
Okay, back to Councillor St. Pierre.
I just want to mention that one of the reasons I nipped out while we were getting a fantastic orientation, I think it was fantastic, I'm pretty sure it was fantastic for committees, was that our Minister of Agriculture, Lana Popham, and our MLA, Dana, were actually at Woodside Farm, wonderful place. And there was an amazingly good round table that brought a lot of our key players in our food systems together. There were actually some really good contacts that were made and connections that were made between people that were looking for things and other people that had them. So just on that basis, it was a really excellent meeting. But Minister Popham, Lana, is amazingly good at listening and is obviously very passionate about Sooke and about food security. So I think we've got a really strong ally in terms of that sort of thing with Minister Popham. And we have a good group of people in Sooke that I think if they follow up with this meeting in another 6 months, because there was some talk of doing that, hopefully we can get things better and better organized. I think there is actually a group in town, the Sooke Regional Food Systems Network, that might act as a nucleus for what could become probably a body that could help out with things like our ag plan and so on and so forth. And I'm hoping that we can actually get some support, maybe from the province for that sort of thing. And we're obviously going to be trying to do what we can, but some good stuff in that meeting, and more to follow.
Councillor Pearson?
Yes, I just wanted to add, I had my note here and I skipped over it, that we had an excellent presentation by our corporate officer in the orientation meeting around local government and local governance. And it was very, very, very well presented. And I think it should be a mandatory presentation to all new council that comes in. It was that good. All the years I've been on council, I don't think I've ever had one as in-depth and explains process and procedure. So thank you very much. And I'm sorry I omitted that. I had it written down.
Well, I'd written that down too, and I was going to say 6 years too late for me. But it is a significant piece of work, and I believe you're going to be posting that on the website for all to
I certainly can. You will be able to look at the iCompass Document Center for committee resources in the coming weeks.
Okay. So that was a great prelude for the start of our two committees, as Mr. Marshall has mentioned, or no, Ms. Gray mentioned in her report. And the land use committees will continue on a monthly basis. Community economic development will meet again every 2 months. So we're back in June. And yeah, lots to look at. As just to clarify what I was saying earlier about diversifying the tax base, this would be a desire. It's not in the work plan yet, but as Mr. Marshall was explaining during the break, and just these committees are designed to work within very clear mandates in the terms of reference, following the strat plan, and come up with really clean, clear motions that will come to this table. And that's when the what's the metaphor? Yeah, something hits the road. I attended the CRD Governance and First Nations Committee meeting last week. CRD will be leaving X, or Twitter, as it's once known, for all those good reasons, and exploring other social media platforms. There was also the results of the first CRD residential survey since 2008. And that was interesting. They're trying to establish baseline metrics for awareness, trust, and reputation of the CRD and its services. And you know, the CRD enjoys high levels of trust, higher levels than provincial or federal governments. However, out here in the rural areas, there's a little more wariness about the CRD, they've discovered. Otherwise, quite generally positive in the core communities. The visit by the BC Seniors Advocate has been well summarized there. Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Sooke Builders Association Luncheon, CRD Arts Commission. Deadline for the second and last round of project grants this year is this coming Thursday. We invest upwards of 50,000 a year in this service, and our nonprofit arts groups are welcome to tap into it, and they do it quite effectively. Finally, the CERTA, the Sooke Region Tourism Association Annual General Meeting and Mixer was at the Sooke Harbor House. Stephen Eckert, who is from the bucket list, Vancouver Island bucket list is his baby, and he's being reelected as president of CERTA. So on that note, that's it. I think we need to adjourn to close the meeting. Motion to adjourn, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. And do I need to read this?
If you could just simply state the section 91 and the letters that follow, just to be super transparent, that would be best
Okay.
practice.
So we're moving that council close the meeting to the public pursuant to the following subsection of the community's charter, the time being 8:02, 90.1, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for position as an officer, employee, or agent in the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. And section C, labor relations or other employee relations. And shall I keep going? E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Section K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages, and that, in the view of the council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. And finally, M, a matter that under another enactment is such that the public may be excluded from the meeting. So it's been moved, seconded, all approve, carried. We're back on April 27th. Come on in. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break.